So, this is another rather impromptu podcast episode. It might not be as long. Episode 3, really. We shall see. I always say it might not be as long, and then it turns out to be somewhat long, depending on who you ask. But I would like to continue the topic of self-unification. Specifically about the aspect of the shadow work, which, is self-unification. Everything that you actually are, which includes your shadow aspects, like everything that you are, to bring up to the light, to fully unify yourself properly, become whole as your own unique soul self, your own unique expression of source, of the divine, whichever terminology you're using. You might be using the term God. I don't, for example, because it's a different, not layer, step, I'm not sure, but it's not important. It isn't. Go with your own kind of inherent, innate terminology for source, for creator, for divine cosmic mother, for the divine, for God, for the universe. Pick one. By the way, if I come across as mildly agitated, it's because I am, and in the best of ways, because I had a perfect moment, a trigger of a woman who I very deeply treasure, for all the work she does and how much she puts herself out there, and with this roar of a tigress, and just so much fire, so much light, and the full spectrum of it. So to come back to this, this is the aspect of self-unification, which is focusing on shadow work. And for one thing, what's shadow? What do we know about shadow? Shadow aspects, splinters of yourself, fractures of yourself, puzzle pieces of yourself, whichever, again, what's your language? Splinters, aspects, layers of yourself that you have repressed, suppressed, out of shame, humiliation, out of fear that, out of any of your core trauma, woundings, being continuously triggered by whatever it might be. It is the aspects of yourself that you have shoved deep down into a corner. The aspects of yourself you have shunned, that you have shamed. It's not just aspects. I mean, it is aspects because with each aspect of yourself comes its own core need, its own core desire, its own strength, its own everything. Now, obviously, because it's not a whole actual conscious being as such, it is just a fractal, a splinter of information of you, the actual whole being. That will become more and more back to its wholeness, and more into your own divinity and divine essence and your powerful love light, your fires of the cosmos. the more you gather, the more you look at your quote-unquote darkness, which the word darkness should be depotentiated, I would like to say, because it doesn't serve. It serves in the sense of you can make it nice and kind of visualize it better when you say it was kept hidden in the dark, as in you're not looking at it, you can't see it, which most of the time you can, I believe, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So shadow is, again, as I've said, repressed, suppressed, because you've shamed it, because for some reason, one way or another, because I also want to say, this is not about me shaming anyone, because, I mean, shadow, hello, I've got my own, it's plenty. This isn't about shaming the act of having shadow, which, again, is something to branch out on, which I won't. It's not about shaming the fact that you have shadow, or that you, how do I phrase that? That you might avoid doing your shadow work, which, for reasons I'll get to, I don't advise. No one at this point, I hope, actually can simply delete no one. That's incorrect. That's just not accurate. I wish there was no one out there advising against doing shadow work or demonizing shadow work. Also demonizing shadow, which comes back to the darkness part. You have that because you are ashamed of it. You deemed those aspects of yourself as a threat for whatever reason. And this is about social paradigms, belief systems, programs, AI above anything, which the whole thing is really AI. Tribal mindset, which all of these things contribute to you looking at an aspect at any point during your childhood, as usual, and onwards. It's just that the massive chunk happens in your childhood, because first 6-7 years, soak it up, soak it up, soak it up, soak it up, everything external, and you build this knowledge that you've gathered from your parents, your schools, the systems around you, the external, and you've created a kind of, alright, okay, so from these experiences I have had, this particular aspect of mine, which can be very, I just want to also say, I do not believe that every aspect, every shadow aspect has to be something really horribly dark and really quite, like, it doesn't have to be intrinsically horrendous, for lack of a better word. What I mean by that is, it can be something fairly innocent, like, what was that? Say, let's use me as an example. That's always the best way to do things, I believe. I have learned that one of the ways to receive love, receive the core need of every being, love, would be to manipulate, in the sense that I would be putting on a bit of a, and this is fairly common, putting on the mask of the happy, kind of cheerful child, because that way you're not threatening, and you make yourself lovable. You know, it's one of them. So whilst that is in and of itself, going forward, I want to say detrimental, obviously, because it's a big streak of distorting who your heart, your soul actually are. It's not to say that you're not a cheerful being. However, it becomes this distorted version of a very pure streak of who you are. And you push aside for me in this particular case, you push aside and you push that in the corner, the calmer, the more quiet part. The one that is actually more observant and not as hyper. Because I have observed early on, people don't react well to, when I say people, for me that's the egoic structure more than anything. If it's very mind oriented and very program settings heavy and very egoic, that's just for me, that's how I make a distinction. Without actually demonizing ego as such, because also that does not help. But again, people don't react well to that. It makes them a bit uncomfortable. Not everyone. Again, it's a very personal thing. However, what would work and what would make me feel safer and more loved and taken care of was putting that in a corner and going, this is not working. You're not working. I'm not working. However, one example, or actually, I'm gonna also use an example from a book that I've read a couple years ago, which is when I had my little journey into. Well, the book is called Shamanic Reiki. It's quite a while back, but it was about soul retrieval, and in this particular case, it will be they used a child that was happily dancing around in the living room, and then because it was, children when happy, full of energy and just being themselves and exuberant and full of divine spark, lively, soulful, heart, and well, because of that, I think they kicked off a vase from a table. The vase broke. Mother comes in. Parent comes in. Gets angry at that. Shames the child. The child, instant trauma, has no idea why that's a bad thing. It's just being shamed for that. Child connects. Although I was doing this. Stops dancing, stops being free in this particular way of expression, suppresses that, goes, this is not working, this has brought me pain, this has brought me shame, actually, this has brought me shame, and also fear, because your parents, that fear of rejection, and this is also a feeling of rejection, this fear of abandonment by your parents, core wounding, abandonment, other one, rejection. That is now a shadow aspect. Au revoir. So that's what I mean by it can be something fairly lightweight. Let's use lightweight. As such, so shadow doesn't always have to be incredibly grimy and something to be feared. Shadow does not have to be feared. I understand why. Trust me, because I too have when I started a little while back now, really, when I started to look at my shadow in regards to like a healthy, sacred sexual energy, sacred, beautiful sexual life force, like this healing, nourishing, sacred energy, sacred expression, and actual, like this divine energy and the divine feminine and the feminine, not even like feminine, and then you evolve even further. And either way, I was terrified because, well, so many reasons. For one, whole lot of programming, then there's a whole lot of trauma, ancestral, for one thing. Let's not even get into, I mean, ancestral also includes past lives, so hey. And then the more immediate maternal imprints, not to mention society and all the programming that's happening there, and societal paradigms and all of that, and there's a myriad of factors that come into this, but bottom line being this very heavy mix of ingredients, or they just produced something that made me absolutely terrified of looking at my shadow in regards to the sexuality topic. And also because I have no clue. For one thing, back then I had no clue how to do shadow work, and also then you come in with the with the sexuality aspect of it, and together, I mean, by the way, I'm still working on it. It's not as if I'm like, and it's done. I mean, obviously you've got that in layers. You've got like the rough ones first, and again, you might do that differently. This is my experience. You've got the rough bits first, like get this massive kind of wobbly, big, shadowy junk. Oh, sorry, not junk. It looks like junk to you, but in the beginning, it's like, overwhelmed. But what I actually like to say, well, probably not, I see, chunk. Like this blobby thing of trauma and wounding and fear and distortion, and you kind of have to look at it and go, so roughly this is that. Okay, we take one thing and then you go and take that and you refine it, and as in you release them layer by layer by layer. Not by the way, which I also have done. You learn. It's evolution. It's emergence, it's remembrance, it's death and rebirth simultaneously, as it always is. But you love it, actually. You stop demonizing your shadow aspects. It doesn't help you, because what you end up doing is your shadow is still a part of you very much so. So denying those aspects of yourself, demonizing those aspects of yourself, all it does is you, instead of showing yourself, i.e. your shadow, more love, you reject yourself even further and more and more and more. Trust me, your mind's gonna do that with all the programming you got running. Especially, that's just another learning curve. It all comes together every single time. To gain that awareness and to learn all of that and to remember how to do so and to get out of your mind and not continuously believe all the settings you've got running that is like looping in your head. Because, you know, gotta learn how to master your mind and make a distinction between your mind being of support to your heart, to your soul, or your mind being in support of all the distortion you've got running. Which one? And that's also something you learn, and after a while you can, I mean, for me this is how I, for example, do it. You might do it differently. After a while you can actually learn that, how it feels when your mind, like in your body, you can feel the difference between your mind's feeding poison, and therefore you being given poison. If you give it, how do you guys pronounce credence? Maybe, I hope so. If you give that strength and empower that, or if you see that thought coming in and really having a look and you feel like, this is just not what? I mean, that's always a good start, to just look at it and go, what is that is not, but why? And then or if it's a genuine kind of so your mind's ideally serving your heart, so that it's like a power team. Anyways, don't demonize your shadow, because you demonize an aspect of yourself. And I say aspect as if it's that tiny little bit. Don't demonize it, but give yourself, and I know that's not always easy. I get it. Like you look at it and you go, this is terrifying. But again, as you learn to see and observe and become aware of when you go into your shadow and meet those aspects, those tiny little shadow yous. Shadow, I'm gonna use the word entity, but can you please not have this heavy connotation that people potentially, I know I used to, so maybe it's projection, have when it comes to the word entity. It's literally just a specific energetic pattern being said over and over with very much the same energetic pattern, and then it becomes this. So your shadow, you keep pushing it and pushing it away and ignoring it and ignoring it, you're just feeding it. It gets more aggravated and more distorted So, when you do your shadow work and you're able to just meet that aspect and step aside a bit and detach, not to remove yourself in the sense that you don't actually feel and connect, but to detach in a way where you are able to connect still with that aspect, but to not get sucked into any fearful programs around it. To stay fairly neutral towards that aspect, and to just observe and be like, okay, so. And there's so many different ways you can do shadow work, which is probably another topic, but you will notice after a little while, when you have a practice, to observe what comes up here in your head, what programs are running, and you just like you meet this particular shadow aspect, and you will immediately get like this kind of if you imagine the AIs you've got running, so your mind is like, on your computer, I sound incredibly old, on your computer, when you open up a folder and then it's got like a drop down menu, so you got one, shadow, and then you click that one, and you've got a massive, or maybe not so massive list. It's like a drop down menu with the different topics for your shadow. And say, you use me again, shadow, drop down, topic, sexuality, click that, drop down. And then specifically, what within sexuality would that be? Drop down. And then it gives you, the moment you start to talk to your shadow, your mind's going to come in with the, it's going to give you thoughts around how, like, the programs you're going to run, it's going to give you the programs. So you meet your shadow, and then you'll notice everything you've been fed throughout your lifetime just running, like the thoughts are just gonna run. And if you can actually step away from that and notice what's running, like kind of what's shameful, what is shameful about this, shaming is just one of the main things, really, actually. And it's going to give you all those kind of responses. And again, maybe you're going to be different. This is just how it's very clear to me at this point. Looking at a shadow, and you get those different kind of responses that your mind is then choosing and kind of going through, because again, only if your mind is kind of working against you rather than for your heart, and being your ally and your support. So you'll notice that when you meet your whichever aspect it is, and when you do meet that aspect, I mean, it's fine. Obviously, it's not about me shaming. If you meet that aspect for the first time, you're like, oh no, I don't want to look at you. You're really scary, and you terrify me, and because it's like something of yourself that is you, part of you that you have deemed hurtful, threatening to the needs you have, to your safety, for one. Two, and safety in all kinds of different ways. So that just branches out in all aspects of your life, in all areas of your life. I get it. However, just instead of running from your shadow, instead of further pushing it away, because there is only so much time you can spend without actually paying attention to your shadow, because you will start to feel side note, to put the obvious out there, your shadow is not gonna go away as such. Your shadow is literally, like, as in, you might push it away, but your shadow is like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm just going to silently operate in the dark, because I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, and I'll pull some levers and stuff behind the scenes without you noticing, because you don't want to see me. No, I see. It's not. It's always longer than I think. So it's not going anywhere. It's still there, and you will notice how there is this underlying. It's coming up more and more. There is no more running, and it's going to present itself in different ways. For one thing, you'll always have a feeling of lack. When I say lack, I'm talking about there's always something missing. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller. Sometimes depending on what methods you use to avoid it, or to numb yourself, or to kind of bypass it, to gloss over it, just skip it. But you always feel something's missing. And that thing that's missing is you. All of you. In this case, it's your shadow. Because obviously, well, anyway, I'll get to that in a second. You have this kind of void. You have a tiny little void. And there will be this lack in satisfaction a lot of the time at a certain point. Because you're not operating as a fully unified being. You are operating, well, I'm gonna make this overly simplified. It's only maybe half or more, depending on where you're at with all of this. So you will feel that. It will show itself in ways where, like, you're not entirely certain why you feel a certain way, but you just do. You won't quite understand certain emotional reactions. Like you would react, that I don't get why I don't understand. Why was that such a, why is that such a weird reaction? Why am I so angry at this? What is happening? Why am I not doing this? Why am I procrastinating? Why? It operates, pun not intended, it operates in the shadows, which is quite a feat, shadow operating in shadow. Yes, I find things like that funny at times. Okay. Anyway, it's just it manifests itself in smaller ways and bigger ways. It will sabotage if you don't look at, you won't be completely centered and in the knowing of why you act. You won't be completely how do I phrase this? You won't be completely in control, which is something of your own choices. You won't be completely conscious of them. Like, you'll hit a limit because you are not fully in yourself. You're not fully you're not a unit. You're not one. So you haven't met all of yourself. You will become a bit of a mystery to yourself. You will miss yourself without really knowing, potentially without really knowing, because why. Therefore, when you meet your shadow, actually be grateful that you're finally having the courage and you're so done with having this odds, nothing or anything. Because your shadow holds wisdom. Your shadow holds strength. It's experience. I.e. wisdom, strength. Your shadow holds a lot of treasure. But you need to bring that up, dark to light. And you do that by loving your shadow, by loving yourself even more, by approaching this part of yourself like you would approach a hurt child. A child, an angry child, crying child. Doesn't matter. Don't demonize your shadow. Be grateful that you finally are having the courage to meet your shadow. Be grateful for the fact that you finally can start this process of unraveling this weird, knots of why there's such a weird void, why you are being potentially destructive with your actions towards yourself or others or both. I mean, there isn't really a separation there anyways in a way, but anyway, just honor all of yourself and know that this is taking self-responsibility. Know that there isn't much to fear when it comes to shadow, because you actually finally look at it more consciously and you gain more wisdom, you gain more of yourself, you become more conscious within who you are and why you do certain things, and then you can take the steps, and then you can integrate your shadow properly, and then you don't operate on this weird kind of, well, let's just say you're less susceptible to AI, programming, any paradigms. You just become more aware fully further, and you will become and step further into yourself. You'll fully integrate. And you will understand next time when you react a certain way, respond a certain way, and you can actually feel then at a certain point. Excuse me. Thanks. And you can recognize the I see. Oh, it's you. And you will understand, and you will get to know yourself better and better and better, and you will be able to love yourself more, to feel more completely loved by yourself. And your needs, good Lord, all your needs, there's so many shadow needs. And no, it does not mean it's something that is, shadow needs always sounds like, it sounds like shadow is out. Like, as if your shadow's needs are needs that are actually, I mean, they might be depending on, say, your trauma or your woundings, but generally speaking, I'm now being a bit more lighthearted with this. It's not as if your shadow's needs are things like really wanting to cause someone damage. It can just be something rather squishy and soft, but something that has shame attached to it, because, you know, people always told you that you should not, if you want this, if you want that, when you're like, I want this thing that people say I can't have if I do this, so therefore I won't. But you will be able to be more self-responsible. More so than when you actually don't integrate your shadow and don't look at your shadow work. You will feel stronger within your heart, your soul, your core, your divine essence, because you're fully coming back together into oneness within yourself. Yeah, you'll be able to be more accountable for yourself, for your choices, your actions, your thoughts, your emotions, and they won't freaking confuse you as much anymore, because you now have illuminated the darker corners of yourself. You've met them. You shook hands with those aspects, and then when it got past the awkward stage, you even gave each other a hug. No, you love those. Just give yourself more love, and find the treasure that your shadow holds. Find that. Neutralize, alchemize. Thank you. So that you don't end up being this completely kind of polarized being of actually, no, I'm not going to get into that one because that's going to take even more time, so I will leave it be. I will leave it. But shadow work is a very, 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 very important, essential part of self-unification. And then we can also go into sacred union within, but leave that with me. And there's a lot of different ways to do shadow work. I have my very own ways. A lot of them already quite common and known, pretty sure. Then there are some that are, as far as I'm aware, unique to me, because everyone has their own unique ways in the end. certain degrees. I think I have said most of what I was able to say on this topic. Please don't fear your shadow. I've been there, and I've also gone from I have gone from what I've talked about before, which is the not I've experienced what I'm talking about. I've experienced the I've experienced the void. I've experienced it. Why am I not? This is weird. Okay. And just kind of along. I've experienced the meeting first time. I've experienced the fearfulness. I've experienced and done the demonizing of it back then when I was very love and light only. I am trust me when I say I am now stronger in my own cosmic divine fire of heart of soul, my own love light, than when I went down the route of only love and light. Because it's not bring your shadow to your light, unify, make that even more powerful for light. Because if you don't, it's still there, just operating, not even silently anymore, just operating in the background and distorting your output in a way. Not to mention, it's not the quantum field exists, the collective exists. It's all here. It's all inside of you. It's not going anywhere. But there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you less worthy. In fact, remember that you are innately and inherently worthy, and that alone, have that love and that knowing, and remember that you are always loved unconditionally, and that you are worthy. So therefore, that means all of you, give yourself that. Be there for yourself, all of you. Don't fear, don't hold shame, have that courage and that love for yourself, and know that you are innately loved through the whole process. There's nothing you could possibly do when you have to face your shadow, and when you integrate that, even when you look at your shadow and you go, oh, this is so, and you have this fear of, oh, who would love that? How can I possibly integrate that? How is that? You are worthy of receiving this unconditional love. You're worthy of bringing your dark to light. You're worthy of doing the shadow work, of releasing trauma. So, and trust me, it is very much worth it. Right, okay. I will go. I wonder if I'll keep saying, oh, this one's gonna be a short one. We are at 50 minutes. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Got my, like, a little mic, in my knees. Like, excuse me. Wing here, just poking out. We'll see what the sound quality is like. I was just very stubborn, determined to have an audio-only version with this, so we shall see how that runs. Okay. So, again, just love all of who you are. I'm gonna call it Linda here, I suppose, but love it back to love. And find the treasure that your shadow aspects hold. Because they do. Some shape or form. They do. And at the end of the day, fearing parts of yourself, that's poisoning yourself from the inside. And you already have that in other ways. Well, not forever, to a certain point. So don't do this to yourself. Don't give yourself more poison than you're already releasing, because we are rolling and we're rocking and we're rolling and we're rocking and we keep going, and there is a lot that's being released from the whole collective, all collectives really, and it's felt. Things are heavy, not always, but there's a lot of release, so don't give yourself more fear. That's all. All the love to your hearts. And happy shadow work.